5 marks. Just mention the guidelines and explain those. That is enough. Okay, after that, the main point is a functional dependency. Most of the time, based on this functional dependency, they ask the definition of functional dependency. This definition you cannot write in your own word. It has to be properly, as in technical term, you have to mention the definition of a functional dependency. So that is another question for till now. It is asked in almost every paper for 5 marks. Either they ask the question for theory, or they have asked one sum based on this functional dependency. Identify all the functional dependency from the given table, or check whether this functional dependency exists for this table or not. Such type of questions are asked for 5 or 10 marks based on the functional dependency. Okay. Next is a normalization, which we are not going to cover today, but still it is a part of a chapter. I'm just giving idea. Normalization, till now, in every exam, they have asked 10 marks question on one sum. The sum are almost repeating in alternative exam, or there are 5, 6 standard sums which they have, every time they are asking the same type of sum. But still, if you know how to solve the sum, at least one sum properly, you can solve any type of sum for the normalization. So that we will cover in next session, maybe first theory and then one sum. So today we are going to start with the design guidelines for relational schema and then functional dependency. We'll see how much we can finish from these two, and then we will start with the next lecture, normalization, or if any part left today, we'll continue. So first point, we'll start with design. I just present it. Design guidelines for relational schema. Now we have already seen that what is a relational schema. Relational schema is nothing but we are having the relations inside, right? Number of relations. If for banking example we saw, we are having account relation, we are having employee relation, and among them whatever relations we are having. So all those together is known as a relational schema. So for that, when we are going to creating a relational database design, that is nothing but collectively all relations, right? The main goal of this relational database design is nothing but information preservation and minimum redundancy, to reduce the redundancy or to remove the redundancy from the relational schema without losing any information. That is the main goal or main aim of the relational database design. Okay, so there are 4 basic guidelines, informal guidelines for this relational schema design, which are listed over here. We will see those one by one in next slides. Making sure that the semantics of the attributes is clear in the schema. Okay. Second one, reducing the redundant information in tuples. Reducing the null values in tuples. And fourth is disallowing the possibility of generating spurious tuples. Okay, so one by one we will go in detail, at least for your theory. This question is asked only for theory marks. So theory question. The first one, imparting clear semantics to attributes in relation. Okay, so here what is that? Basically, whatever attributes we are adding in our relations or tables, you can say, see to it that you are using the proper name for that attribute, so that it is easy to understand. By reading the name of the attribute, I'll come to know what exact information this particular column or field I have to store. Okay, so while giving the attribute name, see to it that it is given properly, so that it is giving me the exact meaning which I required for my attribute or for my relation, part of the relation, right? So that is one. So for that, what guidelines they have given? The relation schema design should have a clear meaning. Whatever table name, attribute name which you are giving, give the proper name for it. So guideline is design a relation schema so that it is easy to explain its meaning. Do not combine attributes from multiple entity types and relationship types into a single relation. So sometimes students are doing they are adding 10, 12 attributes for the relation. But do you really require do you really require those many attributes for the relation? So if you don't require with five attributes, if I am able to explain that relation properly, then those are enough. If I have attributes such as primary key is added to that with three attributes, I know this can act as of somewhere refer in another relation, or these are required in this relation. So I know these many attributes are enough. So make like that. Don't combine one attribute I required over. Sometimes in ER diagram we also saw many people are having same attribute in every relation, like name. So I told you that attribute name should be different. Okay. And for that relation, related attribute you have to write. So write the relation name underscore the attribute name, for example, name. So that you will come to know exactly this is the field for this particular relation. Right? So that is first guideline. Second one, redundant information in tuples and update anomalies. Now the anomalies are what? What do you mean by update anomalies? Basically, these update anomalies are insertion, deletion, or any type of modification anomalies. Together is known as the update anomalies. Now here, what happened? Anomalies means anything which is going to be result in something unexpected or something wrong as a result. So that is known as the anomalies. Means something you will get wrong result, something unexpected result which is not expected for that particular query or whatever. So that is known as the anomalies. So here, redundant information in tuple. See to it that your tuples will not have a similar kind of information and update anomalies. Now suppose I have required a faculty as one of the table or relation, but I am adding faculty as one of the relation for my course system or whatever. I am also adding teacher as another relation in my schema. So here, teacher and faculty, I am giving me the same information. So suppose I require, I am adding only the same information in that, same attributes and everything. But the teacher and faculty using two different names for the same job is not useful, right? So instead of that, instead of this redundant information, duplicate information, I can go for only one, right? So such type of redundant information should be avoided, right? So second guideline, aim is group the attributes into relations to minimize data redundancy and thereby reduce the file storage space required by the implemented base relation. Group the attributes into relation. Sometimes what we are doing, uh, one of the uh, relation we are adding into our diagram, into our schema model. But I came to know this relation, instead of keeping this as a table, it two similar type of two attributes I have added. Okay, suppose I want to find the location particular employee, so I am saying location, and second I am adding the attribute as a place. So here I am putting the same information for that particular employee. So redundant anomaly information will create the problem, update anomalies. Okay. So for that guideline is design the base relation schema so that no insertion, deletion or update or modification anomalies are present in your relation. So see to it that try to avoid duplicate information. Try to make your relations as far as possible without if uh, any particular relation is can act as an attribute in another relation, add it. So remove the relation which can act as an attribute and duplicate attribute, duplicate relations name, remove all those. If any anomalies are present still after doing all this, any anomalies, insert, delete or modification anomalies are present, note them clearly and make sure that the program that update the database will operate correctly. While writing the query, see to it that it will not affect your result if you know that anomalies are present. But it is as far as it is possible, Remove those anomalies before starting the query. Third one, null values in tuples. Already we have studied the concept of null values. That is this meaning meaning of null value, right? The meaning is the attribute does not apply to this tuple. I have added the attribute, but it is of no use. So I'm just putting the value as a null. Second is attribute value for this tuple is unknown. Right now I don't know the value for it, so it is unknown. The value is known but absent right now, so it has been recorded. It has not been recorded yet. So that is the third meaning for null value, which I already covered in null values concept in SQL queries and when we started with relational algebra. So null value is right now I don't know the value. I'll add it later on. The attribute I added, but it is of no use. So just keep the value as a null model. Okay. Require that the value for a certain set of attributes determines uniquely the value for another set of attributes. So here what is a functional dependency? One set of attribute determines the value for another set of attribute. If you are having, suppose in account relation, I am having a account number, I am having a customer name. So I can say account number determines customer name. Okay, so that is known as a functional dependency. How to write everything I will explain you, don't worry. A functional dependency is generalization of the notion of key, basically based on the, it is like a key attribute for your dependence. So this is the definition. This is very important, whatever all terms are written. In exam, when the functional dependency definition is asked, students are writing whatever is given on this slide. This is not a functional dependency. This is about functional dependency, basic things. But what is the definition? This is the definition of functional dependency. So previous slide plus these both are important to write your answer. So let R be a relational schema. Whatever you are having, R is our relational schema. Alpha is subset of R and beta is subset of R. What I am saying, if alpha is subset of R and beta is also subset of R, the functional dependency alpha determines beta. It is written as like this. And read it. How you read it? Alpha determines beta. Arrow towards determine. So alpha determines beta. It is you have to read it like this. Holds on. It present. If alpha is a subset of R, beta is a subset of R, then I can say functional dependency alpha determines beta present or holds on R if and only if. This is a condition. This is very important. This dependency present only if for any legal relation R which is from R, whenever any two tuples T1 and T2 of R agrees on the attribute alpha, they also agrees on the attribute beta. That is T1 of alpha equal to T2 of alpha implies T1 of beta equal to T2 of beta. Okay. So here, what is it? Suppose I am having, I'll just take for your understanding, I am just taking one word table. Suppose I am saying this is one of the table, assume as it is, I'll say A is one of, alpha is one of the attribute. Alpha right now I don't have alpha symbol and I don't want to go for that. A is one of the attribute, B is another attribute, C is another attribute, D is another attribute. This is my tuple which is known as a P1. I'll take three attributes only. This is my P1, this is P2, this is P3. This is tuple number 1, this is tuple number 2, and this is tuple number 3. Okay. Now what I am saying, A determines B. If I want to say A determines B, then I can say A belongs to R. This is my relation R, and B also belongs to R. where I am saying A determines B when some value of A, T1 of alpha means here T1 of A equal to T1, T2 of A. Here, I just show slides also to you. See here. Okay, so when I am saying T1 of alpha, consider A as alpha here right now. So T1, tuple 1 of alpha. So this is T1 of alpha equal to T2 of alpha, second tuple, T2 of alpha. These both are same. If these two are same, then T1 of beta, here T1 of beta means T1 of B1, B right now, is also equal to T2 of B. Clear? When I am saying A determines when I am saying A determines B present in this relation, then I am saying, if I am saying this, it means T1, whatever value I am having for A here, which is equal to this value, then I have to say that its same value is present. T1 of B is equal to T2 of B. Value can be different. Here, suppose it is, I am saying 5 is the value, then here is also 5. Okay, then here it is suppose C value, so here it has to be C. Clear? What values part we will see when we will go with the questions or sums based on this functional dependency. So what I am saying, if I am saying A determines B, means for tuple T1 alpha equal to T2 alpha, implies that tuple T1 of beta equal to tuple T2 of beta. Okay, if this is satisfied, then you can say A determines B, and the condition has to be true for all the values of A and B. So whatever you are having, suppose here you are having another value, suppose I am having 6, next 4 I am not having 6 anywhere, so I cannot say this tuple is same as whatever the rule apply to B. That we will see in the sum part, but right now it is clear with the definition part. The thing is, whatever tuple whatever tuple T1 is having the value for alpha is same as tuple 2 if it is satisfied. If it is there, then similarly implies to beta also. If here I am not having the same value of tuple T1 and T2 in alpha, only one value present, 5 in for example column A, column alpha, then this is not satisfied. That is, then it is okay over here. But if here it's satisfied, then it has to satisfy in beta also. Then only I can say alpha determines beta. So this is the complete definition for functional dependency. You have to start from here that R will one of the relation schema where alpha is subset of R, beta is subset of R. The functional dependency alpha determines beta present or holds on R if and only if for any legal relation R on R, whether any two tuples T1 and T2 of R agrees on the value or attribute alpha, they also agrees on the attribute beta, such as if T1 of alpha equal to T2 of alpha, it implies T2 of beta equal to T1 of beta equal to T2 of beta. This is the standard definition. We will not do any changes in this. Only if sums are there, we will write it. Okay. Now next. K is a super key for the relation schema R. If and only if K determines R, if your K determines the complete R schema, then we can say K is a super key. K is called candidate key for R when K determines R, as well as for No, what is this notation? Anyone knows this notation? Anyone?
Subset.
This, yeah. Subset is this notation. It is also a subset, but one of the different type of subset. It is a proper subset where below this that line is not there. This is a actual subset. This is a proper subset. Proper subset is what? Where every attribute of alpha present in K. Okay, but one of the attribute which is not there in K, I have written the definition for this proper here. A is a proper subset of B if and only if every element of A is also in B, and there exists at least one element in B that is not in A. Okay, it is also applicable for subset. So proper subset for no alpha, so proper subset of K, alpha determines R. Okay. Now functional dependency allows us to express constraint that cannot be expressed using the super key. Sometimes with the super key, it is not possible to explain or create some relation with the help of super key, some relation or some dependency or some constraint. We cannot add with the help of super key, but those we can add with the help of functional dependency if you are going in deep learning of the functional dependency. Let's consider this schema. For example, borrow loan. Borrower loan is a relation which is having the attribute customer ID, loan number, and amount. We expect this functional dependency to hold. Loan number determines amount. Primary key attribute determine or part of primary key attribute determine non-key is always true, right? So loan number determine amount. It is correct. It will determine, but would not expect the following to hold. Like amount determine the customer name, which is not there, right? So this is not possible with the help of super key, but in some cases with the help of functional dependency you can make it true. Okay, but that is not always true. It is in one of the case. For example, in banking system we know that there is only one employee in some in particular bank who is having so much of asset for that particular bank as a part of bank asset. So in that case bank people or everyone knows that particular customer based on the amount. That is a worst case or any one situation, exception case where this is true. But non-key determining key attribute or some other attribute is not always true. But this you can make true with the help of functional dependency. With the help of super key, it is not at all possible. Okay, so that we will see when we'll go for a normalization. What is the use of functional dependency? Okay, so in exam till now whatever I am covering all these use of functional dependency, they have not asked in detail, but I am covering for you people so that you will come to know what is functional dependency and all. They have asked only the one question, define functional dependency, and one sum they have asked till now. So you can add this use of functional dependency part as a definition of functional dependency. Continue your answer with this. The functional dependency basically used to test the relations to see if they are legal under a given set of functional dependency. To check whether whatever schema, whatever relations you have created, those are correct, those are legal or not. If a relation R is legal under a set F of functional dependency, capital F is known as a set of functional dependencies. Okay, or any one functional dependency. Usually we denote with the F. We say that R satisfy F. Relation R satisfy F. Okay. So to test the relation is legal or not, functional dependency is used. Second, to specify constraints on the set of legal relation. Once the relation is legal, you can specify some rules or some constraint on the relation with the help of functional dependency. Okay, that is another use of the functional dependency. A specific instance of relational schema may satisfy this. I already told you this is not possible with the help of super key or key attribute, but this can be possible with the help of functional dependency. It is not 100%, but it can be possible. Functional dependency can make it possible. So that is about the use for functional dependency. Functional dependency is trivial. What is trivial functional dependency? Again, this trivial word they have used in one of the exam paper. Identify trivial and non-trivial functional dependency. You should know what is trivial functional dependency. It is satisfied by all instances of a relation. Okay. So now, customer name. Suppose this is the example. Customer name or loan number determine customer name. Customer name determines customer name. These are trivial functional dependency. How? See this. This is the definition for checking the trivial functional dependency. If we are saying alpha determines beta is trivial. This part is alpha determines this part is beta. This part is alpha determines this part is beta. If we are saying this is trivial, when? When beta is a subset of alpha. Beta is your customer name, is subset of alpha, correct? Because alpha is having that value, customer name and loan number. So it is correct. It is true. Customer name is subset of customer name, true, proper subset. Because here, whatever customer name value I am having, same here. So it is subset of this. So I can say these two are trivial functional dependency. Another thing here for your understanding, we usually say like this. Uh, Alpha determines beta. So I can say A, B, uh, determines A. I'll say AB determines B. So this is known as a trivial functional dependency. This is known as a trivial functional dependency. Why? Because A is a subset of this relation. Okay, this side. B is a subset of this part. Alpha. This whole is my alpha. This is my beta as per the definition. So if it is a form where beta is a subset of alpha, then we can say alpha determines beta is trivial. So these are just for your understanding example. Okay. This is trivial functional dependency. Everyone clear? We will again solve the sum based on this. So don't worry about it. You all know closure set. In maths, you have studied closure set. Just respond at least yes, no. Have you studied?
No, ma'am.
No. Okay. So anyways, closure of a set of functional dependent. Closure here we are going to say is represented like this. Closure of functional dependency set is represented like this F plus. So here, given a set F, I have set F or number of functional dependency I am having, right? Set of functional dependency. Okay. There are certain other functional dependency that are logically implied by F. For example, I have A determines B, I have B determines C. These are functional dependencies present in my F. Okay, actual functional dependencies which they have given as a part of my F set of functional dependency. But with the help of this, I can logically determine some other functional dependency. And then I will add those other functional dependency into my set of functional dependency F, which is known as a closure of F. Okay, so collection of all possible functional dependencies together or set of all possible functional dependency is known as a closure of functional dependency. For that, you should know some rules. to convert or to get the functional dependency closure, right? So this is one rule known as a reflexivity. If I am having beta is a subset of alpha, then I can say alpha determines beta. If beta is subset of alpha, then I can say alpha determines beta. This you have to buy it or you have to remember. Second one, augmentation. Some constant you are multiplying with this or some constant you are adding at both the sides. If alpha determines beta, then I can say gamma alpha determines gamma beta. Sorry, correct? If you are adding both sides, same field, then it is valid because I know alpha determines beta present. So if I am adding gamma alpha determines gamma beta, it is valid. So that is known as the augmentation. If alpha determines beta and beta determines gamma, then I can say alpha determine gamma, A determine B, B determine C. Then I can say A determine C, which is known as the transitivity. Okay. So here, these rules are basically which we are using are used for generating all possible functional dependency. Okay. So here, the set of all functional dependencies logically implied by F is known as a closure of F, denoted by F plus. For that, these are the three rules. There are few more rules which we will see together. So here, if I am saying A determine B, B determine C, so with the help of transitivity, I will get A determine C. So it is known as a added. It will added into the F plus. Fine. So one example we will see. Actually, I have not highlighted all this. Is okay. This is one example I want you people to solve actually. R is equal to, R is given as, these are all fields or attributes. A, B, C, G, H, I. My functional dependency set is A determine B, A determine C, CG determine H, CG determine I, and B determine H. So now question is find the closure of F. Okay. So I have to find out other than this, what other functional dependencies exist, right? So what I will do here, I know that A determine B, but I am having B determine H. So with the help of which rule? Transitivity. I will get A determine H, A determine B, B determine H. So I will get A determine H with the help of transitivity. So first is given, this is a new functional dependency, A determine H because of the transitivity which I told you. A determine B, B determine H. Clear? First is clear, very simple. Second one, they are getting AG determine I. How you are getting AG determine I? See here. I am having A determine C, right? So what I'm doing here, I am augmenting this functional dependency with G. So what I will get? AG determine CG, right? So here, A determine C, I am augmenting with G, so I will get AG determine CG. But CG is what? CG determining H or CG determining I, right? So I can say instead of AG determine CG and CG determining I, so I can say AG determine I. So these I got AG determine I. Same way I can also get for H because CG determine H. But already H is there determined over here with the help of A. So I have not added that. Third one, CG determine HI. Why? CG determines H, CG determine I. So I can take union of these together. So I will get this side is CG and CG, same. So CG and H and I combined together, CG determine HI. Okay. So here These are the three new functional dependencies which I can add over here. You want, you can also add AG determine H. You can show that. That is not wrong. So four dependency you can add for this functional dependency for a closure of F. Any other, anyone finding with the help of this? No, right? So this is clear, everyone? Anyone wants explanation again, or we'll go ahead? Shall I go ahead?
Clear, ma'am.
Okay. Next, the functional dependency right now which we have created. For that, they have given algorithm how to find out the functional dependency. So right now, initially, I will consider my closure set of functional dependency as whatever functional dependency they have given. Okay, so that is same way the way you are doing the coding in other language. Same way I am considering my functional dependency closure is as whatever functional dependencies are given. Then repeat. This is my loop. Repeating for each functional dependency F in F plus. Whatever one functional dependencies are given for every functional dependency present in this F plus now. Apply the reflexivity, augmentation rules if those are possible. If with that you are getting some new functional dependency, add that functional dependency into your F plus. For each pair of functional dependency, this was for individual functional dependency. Then for pair of functional dependency, check if using those pair you are getting that, apply the transitivity if it is applicable. And with that, if you are getting the new functional dependency, add that new functional dependency into your F plus, right? Now, until your F plus does not change, whatever this reflexivity and transitivity you have to apply till your functional F plus, you are getting the new value to add into the F plus. Once that is done, you have to stop it. If you are not getting new functional dependency to add into the F plus, stop it until stop it. So that is just a algorithm given for you. If you are writing this in exam, is okay. If you are not writing in exam, doesn't matter. Other some rules or formulas for your understanding. Union, just now we saw in the previous example. If we are having alpha determine beta and alpha determine gamma, then we can say alpha determine beta gamma. This is known as a union rule. Next is a decomposition. Now I have this alpha determines gamma or beta gamma, right? I can go in reverse way also. I can say alpha determine beta and alpha determine gamma. This is known as a decomposition, reverse of union. Okay. Next is a pseudo transitivity. With transitivity, we know A determine B, B determine C, we got A determine C. But if I am having alpha determine beta and gamma beta determines delta, then I can say alpha gamma determines delta. How? We'll see. See here, alpha determine beta and gamma beta determine delta. So what I will do here, I will augment with gamma. So I will have alpha gamma determines beta gamma, right? Or gamma beta. Reverse way is okay. So alpha gamma and determines beta gamma. But beta gamma determines what? Delta. So I can say alpha gamma determines delta. Right? So this is true. Correct? Everyone clear how we got this? So these all rules also you can use for your functional dependency closure to find the functional dependency closure. Okay? Closure of, that was the closure of functional dependency. Now closure of attribute set, one of the attribute. Suppose I am taking alpha as one of the attribute. You can take customer name, you can take loan number, you can take payment, whatever, any one attribute. So closure of the attribute set is known as a alpha plus. Okay, given a set of attribute alpha, Define the closure of alpha under the given functional dependency set F, which is denoted as alpha plus, okay, as the set of attributes that are functionally determined by alpha under F. Using the functional dependency only, you have to identify the closure of attribute. Okay, so the algorithm for this is, consider your final closure of alpha is equal to alpha, whatever the attribute values you are having. While changes to result do for each beta determines gamma in F do begin with, if beta is a subset of result, then result is equal to result union gamma. See here, I will just take one example for your understanding to find the closure of attribute. If I am having, for example, right now, consider, I'll just write here only so that it will be easy for you to understand. I'll just make this font size smaller so that I can write over there. Or else I'll do one thing. I'll copy in the word and there I'll write. What happened? 26. Yeah, I don't require this. I require this algorithm so that you can understand. You can see this, or I need to increase the font size. Okay. So now, based on this, what algorithms say, for any functional dependency which present in F, you have to check whether B present in your attribute alpha or not. If it presents subset of your result, then what you have to do, whatever it determines, that you have to add union with your result. Suppose I am taking example as result which is equal to uh, alpha words. Now I require the syntax alpha. Yeah, it is there here. Okay, here alpha is copied as a in word file. Consider this a as alpha right now. Okay, in place of alpha, I'll take a, that is better. So now I am saying result is equal to my a or alpha, consider alpha, which is equal to, right now, suppose I am having the values as a, b, and c. I'm saying these are the attribute values which are present with me right now. Later on, my functional dependencies, as they have said, consider the functional dependency set. In this functional dependency set, I am having the functional dependency F1, which is equal to, which is A determines B. Suppose I will say D. Something new we should take. Second functional dependency they have given F2. Suppose it is, we'll take B determines S. These are the functional dependencies present for the particular relation. Now they said this is what result is equal to A. So I have considered result whatever uh, values are present in A right now, while changes to the result do for each beta, functional dependency. So we have to consider these two functional dependency. Beta determine gamma in functional dependency. What I have to do, if beta subset of result, I have to check the with the first functional dependency. That is right now A determine B. Here beta is A. A present in my result? Yes. So I have to add this D into my result, right? So my result will be after this result union gamma. So that is result. I have to add D. See, if beta is a subset of result, then result is equal to result union gamma. So this is gamma is D. So I have added D here, right? Second, B determine S. B is a part of my result. Yes. So S I have to add over here. So my final attribute closure alpha plus is this. After this, I am not getting anything because only two functional dependency they have given. With this, A determine D, D determine something is also not possible with any logical rule. So I am getting here attribute closure is this. Clear? With example. So that is about the attribute closure. So you can find out the functional dependency closure as well as you can find out the attribute closure. So now here the example is given for attribute closure right now. We can say R determines so and so things. These are the functional dependencies given to you. Okay. Find out the AG plus AG attribute plus together closure you have to find out. So initially we will consider result as this, whatever attributes are there with the AG. So result is AG, right? So now in this, I will consider one by one relation. I have taken A determine B and A determine C. So with the which rule I can apply over here? A determine B and A determine C. I know that A is a part of this result, right? So A determine B. B will also join to this. Similarly, A determines C. So C will also join to this. So I have written in order A, B, C, G. Here are now my result value, right? As the rule, you know, beta determine gamma, then whatever gamma, if beta is present in our result, we have to add the gamma into our result, union to that. So same way I did, I know A is present over here in this my result. So A determines something, B. So I have added B. Again A determines something, C. So I have added here C. Okay, clear? Now, G determines something is there? No, only G is not there. So I'll not consider right now that. Next, I have here CG, right? CG determines something is there, which is H. Similarly, CG determine I. So I can add that CG determine H, which is CG is also part of this my result. So I will add, I have added H here, I have added the I over here, right? So this is my final attribute closure for AG. Clear? So with this, we are getting the attribute closure. Now, question is AG candidate key? These are not yet asked to you. So if you are not understanding, it's okay. Does AG determine R? See, R is this. I am getting with the AG plus AG star plus is all the values which are present in R. So I can say yes, AG determine the R. Where I can say is AG plus R subset of AG plus. Yes, because all the values are present in AG plus. Is any sub is any subset of AG a super key? For example, I can say A determine R. A determine R is possible. You can solve this and you will come to know it is not possible. That is okay. I'm not solving this. Find out the A plus. You will not get A plus. R is a subset of A plus. Similarly, find out only G plus. You will not get R is a subset of G plus. A plus will be what? A plus will be initially A will be the value, then B will come, C will come. So it will be A, B, C. A, B, C is determine something, B determine H. So H will join to them. I will have A, B, C, H. Then I will not get these two attributes. So G will not come over there. So this is not possible. A plus will not be R is not subset of A plus. So this is not G plus. You take initially G is there. G is there. Then G determines something is there. Only G. I can break this. So G determine H is possible. G determine I is possible. So I can get G H I. GHI determines something? No. So I will not get ABC values for this G plus. So I can say no for this. This is okay if you are not solving, because till now they have not asked question from this. But you should know at least what is attribute closure and how to find it. Next, uses of attribute closure. Here, I'll just suggest you only remember what is written in red. Uses of attribute closure: testing for super key, testing functional dependencies, and computing closure of functional dependency. Okay, don't go in detail. That is not required at your level right now. I have added theory related that, but forget about that. Extraneous attribute. Again, they have not asked question from this, but it is slightly difficult to understand. I'll suggest you just learn this formula, because solving with this is difficult. We will solve the sum based on this. Extraneous attribute. Consider a set F of functional dependencies and the functional dependency alpha determine beta in F. So this is given set of functional dependency. In that one functional dependency, they have given alpha determine beta for that functional dependency. Attribute A is extraneous in alpha. Attribute A is extraneous in alpha if A belongs to alpha. A is present in alpha, but that is extraneous if alpha means left side, consider, beta means right side right now. So left side, one of the attribute is extraneous if F logically implies. You have to solve this. F minus alpha determines beta. Union with alpha minus A determines beta. Similarly, attribute A is extraneous in beta, right side. It is extraneous if A is present at right side, and the set of functional dependency. This is satisfied. F minus alpha determine beta, union alpha determine beta minus A. This you have to learn, and how to solve for functional dependency, that I will explain you. Okay, so now here given, so consider this functional dependency. A determines C and AB determines C. Okay, so now here B is extraneous in AB determines C. B is extraneous in AB determines C, because A determines C and this logically implies to A determines C, that the result of dropping B from AB determines C. If I am dropping B from here, I'll get A determines C only. And if I am saying B determines C, suppose for example, again I'll just copy this. As we don't have board, so we have to take help of this word file only. So I'm saying A determines C, right? So I'm having A determines C. I am having AB determine C, right? So with the help of this, suppose I am breaking this. A determine, AB determine C into A determine C, and sorry, I caps lock on. A determine C I am getting, and other attribute I am getting? B determine C, right? If I am breaking these, A, B determines C into two parts, so I am getting A determines C as well as B determines C. But when I'm applying a transitivity over here, eh, I'm having B determines C, right? So if I'm dropping this B determines C, what I will get? Only A determines C, which is already present over here, right? So for that, what I'm getting here, only A determines C is sufficient for this to solve my functional dependency, or to imply the functional dependency. So what I'm saying, B is unnecessary added over here, which I'm calling it as an extraneous attribute. If I'm removing the B, I'm getting only A determines C, which is already there, which is already present over here. So I'm saying B is an extraneous attribute present at my left side. You don't have to remove it right now, just we are saying it that B is an extraneous attribute in this functional dependence. Okay. So now, suppose consider the second one. With that, we will give more detail. Here in this functional dependency, if I am saying A determines C and AB determines CD, explaining you with the help of this is slightly difficult, because same thing, same thing you have to solve with the help of this. Then you will come to know why that attribute we are calling it as an extraneous attribute. Okay, so right now when I am saying, I can tell you if I am removing B from here, I'll get A determines C, which is already present. So I'm saying B is unnecessary present in my functional dependence, right? Here, if I am removing C, it will give me the, if I'm keeping it, it will give me AB determines C. Again here, A determines C, if I am breaking it, which is already present, right? If I am saying AB determine D, D is not determined by any other function attribute. So I have to keep the D. I cannot remove the D. But C is determined with the help of A determine C. So I am saying C is an extraneous. This is only simpler way I can tell you. Otherwise, if you want a proper answer, we have to solve this. Here you have to put the values, all values. Okay, so then you will get that C is extraneous or not. That I have actually solved, but right now I don't think at this level I can show you that solution, or you can go ahead with that. One example we will solve for this extraneous attribute, so that you will slightly get more idea. So this is extraneous attribute. How to test whether the attribute is extraneous or not? So for that, what you have to do, if attribute A belongs to alpha is extraneous, okay, then what you can do, compute alpha minus A plus using the dependencies in functional dependency. Check that alpha minus A plus contains beta. Alpha minus A plus contains beta. If it does, A is extraneous in alpha. If it does not, then we can say it is not extraneous to alpha. So I have done this for a previous example also. Again to check, here we have checked A, uh, attribute A as an extraneous, right? If attribute A belongs to beta, at left side, if you want to check, you have to solve this. Right side, if you want to check, then you have to solve this. If you want the solution for this, what I will do, I will just take a picture of that which I have solved, and I will uh, uh, add that solution in this slide, so that it will be easy for you people how to solve this. Because right now solving all the notations, I cannot type it. So that for that purpose, I'll just share the screenshot later on, maybe in next lecture, so that it will be more easy for you to understand. Canonical cover is the last part related with this functional dependency. So I think right now canonical cover I will not ask you. Anybody is asking? I'm just getting notification. Any comment? Yeah. So because I know slightly here mathematics terms are there, and I don't want to just burden on you just explaining, and if you are not getting, then it is a waste of explanation, right? So this extraneous attribute one solution, what I will do, I will add it in this slide itself, so that you will come to know why we are calling this here in this case this C as an extraneous and all that. Okay, at least one I will explain with the proper solution. And then we'll continue with the canonical cover and all, because for these again we required extraneous attribute, how to find out. Okay, so here I'll stop right now. Any doubt till now whatever we have covered? For extraneous attribute I will again add it, so right now I will not explain you that, or else I can explain, but that will be only based on this. Okay, any doubt till now? Functional dependency, everybody is clear? So in next lecture, we will cover the extraneous attribute one simpler way. I will explain you properly with the screenshot of my solution. And then canonical cover we will cover. And lossless joint decomposition, because this is asked in exam. We'll solve some based on that, and dependency preservation. Till here we will cover in next lecture, and then we'll not go for normalization. We'll go for sums based on functional dependency. So don't miss the next lecture. It is very important for, because in exam usually sum is asked compulsory on functional dependency. Any doubt, student, you can ask. Okay, then I'll take your attendance.